Hello and welcome. Today I want to tell you a story that is not only about war. It is about fear. It is about love. It is about duty. It is about the moment when an ordinary person must decide, will I step forward or will I step back? And if you listen carefully, you may discover that this is not only Mulan's story. It may be yours too. Because most people think heroes are born different. They think courage belongs to special people. They think greatness begins with power. They think unforgettable lives start in extraordinary places. But that is not how it happened for Mulan. She did not begin as a legend. She began as a daughter, a quiet daughter, a dutiful daughter. A daughter sitting at home while the world outside was breaking apart. That is what makes her story so powerful. Because it reminds us of something many people forget. Greatness does not always begin in a palace. Sometimes it begins in a small room, in a quiet home, in the heart of someone who is afraid but chooses to act anyway. Long ago, in a time of war, Mulan lived with her family in northern China. The country was in danger. The borders were under threat. The empire needed soldiers, and when a nation calls for war, fear does not stay in the capital. It enters ordinary homes. It sits at ordinary tables. It reaches ordinary families. It changes ordinary lives. One evening, Mulan sat by her loom. The room was quiet. The sound of weaving rose and fell, but her hands were not steady. Her heart was somewhere else, because the army notice had come. Every family had to send a man to serve. And in her house, the name on the list was her father's. She looked at the notice. Then she looked again. Her father was no longer young. His body had grown weak. He had already served before. He had already given enough. But there was no grown son in the family to go in his place. And in that moment, Mulan understood something terrible. If her father went, he might never come home. This is the true beginning of her story. Not the battlefield, not the emperor, not the fame. It begins here. With a daughter looking at a piece of paper and realizing that life has placed a weight in front of her. A weight no one asked her to carry. A weight she did not choose. A weight that could change everything. This is where many people freeze. This is where many people say, "Why is this happening to me?" This is where many people wait for someone else to solve the problem. Mulan did not wait. She made a decision. She would go, she would take her father's place. She would leave home. She would hide who she was. She would enter the army under her father's name. Think about that for a moment. She was not choosing comfort. She was not choosing safety. She was not choosing the easy life people expected for her. She was choosing the harder road. And that is the first lesson in her story. Real courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move while fear is still standing in front of you. Many people say they will be brave one day. One day when they feel stronger. One day when life feels easier. One day when the timing is perfect. But courage rarely comes with perfect timing. Most of the time, courage comes when life says, "Now." And Mulan answered, "Then now it is." Once she decided, she did not stay in her thoughts. She moved. In the East Market, she bought a horse. In the West Market, she bought a saddle. In the South Market, she bought a bridle. In the North Market, she bought a whip. This part of the story may sound simple, but it is one of the most important parts. Because a decision without action is just a beautiful idea, and beautiful ideas do not change lives. Action does. Many people dream. Many people talk. Many people promise themselves that they will change. But the people who truly change their lives are the people who move after they decide. Mulan decided. Then Mulan moved. The next morning she left home. Behind her were her parents. Behind her was the life she knew. Behind her was safety, familiarity, and comfort. Ahead of her was distance. Cold, risk, silence, war. That journey was not glorious. It was lonely. At dawn, she left her family. By evening, she had reached the Yellow River. She could no longer hear her parents calling her name. All she could hear was the rushing water. The next day, she went farther. Farther from home, farther from safety, farther from the person she had been. This is one of the deepest truths in Mulan's story. Before transformation, there is separation. Before you become stronger, you often have to leave something behind. Before you become wiser, you often have to walk through uncertainty. Before you become unforgettable, you often have to endure loneliness. Modern people want growth, but many do not want discomfort. They want results without sacrifice. They want a new life without leaving the old one. They want strength without the cold road that creates it. Mulan's story says otherwise. If you want to become more, at some point you must leave the shore. Soon she entered military life. Now imagine what that really meant. She had to live among soldiers every day. She had to speak carefully. Walk carefully, rest carefully, fight carefully. One mistake could expose her. One moment of weakness could destroy everything. So she learned discipline. She learned control. She learned endurance. She learned how to carry fear without letting fear control her. And this is another reason people still remember her. Because courage is not always loud. Sometimes courage is quiet. Sometimes it looks like waking up and carrying the burden again. Sometimes it looks like staying calm when your heart is racing. Sometimes it looks like doing what must be done without applause, without recognition, without anyone knowing how hard it is for you. That kind of courage is rarer and stronger. The war did not end quickly. This was not one moment of bravery. This was years, years of marching, years of cold wind. Years of armor in the night, years of warning drums, years of danger, years of watching strong men fall. Winter came, then another winter. Then another, generals died. Soldiers disappeared, homes were lost, lives were changed forever. And Mulan stayed. That matters. Because the world often praises the beginning of hard things. People clap when someone starts. People clap when someone announces a dream. People clap when someone says, "I'm going to change my life." But very few people talk about the long middle. The middle is where most people quit. The middle is where excitement is gone. The middle is where the road becomes heavy. The middle is where you are tired, unseen, and still not finished. Mulan became extraordinary there, not only in the moment she chose to go, but in the years she chose not to give up. That is where real character is built, not in one dramatic decision, but in repeated discipline. Again and again, day after day, battle after battle. Her fellow soldiers did not know her secret. To them, she was simply one of them. A fighter, a companion, someone dependable. Someone brave, someone they could trust when things became hard. And that may be one of the most inspiring parts of her story. She did not waste her energy trying to prove she was special. She let her actions speak. That is a lesson many people need now. You do not always need to explain yourself. You do not always need to announce your greatness. You do not always need the world to understand you immediately. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is become so solid, so disciplined, and so capable that your results speak before you do. Years passed, some say 10 years, 10 years of war, 10 years of silence, 10 years of discipline. 10 years of carrying a truth almost no one knew. Then at last the war ended. Mulan returned with honor. She had served well. She had done more than many expected. She had crossed fire and survived. When the ruler heard of her service, he offered her a reward, a high office, a place of honor, a position in government. For many people, this would have been the final victory. This is what the world teaches us to want, isn't it? More status, more power, more recognition, more titles. But Mulan asked for something else. She asked for a fast horse to take her home. That moment is one of the most beautiful moments in the entire story, because it shows that Mulan understood something many people never learn. Success is not only about how high you can rise. It is also about knowing what matters most. She had done what she needed to do. She had fulfilled her duty. Now she wanted to return to the people she loved. There is strength in that. There is wisdom in that. The world tells people to keep climbing forever. But if you do not know what you are climbing for, then the world will choose your destination for you. Mulan knew her destination: home. Family loved the heart, so she returned. When she neared her village, her family came out to meet her. Her father saw her from far away. Her mother came with tears in her eyes. Her younger siblings ran toward her with joy. The house that once seemed ordinary now felt precious. Then Mulan went back to her room. She opened the door. She sat before the mirror once again. She took off her war clothes. She put on her old dress. She fixed her hair. She placed flowers by her face. Then she stepped outside. And the soldiers who had marched beside her, fought beside her, and survived beside her stared at her in shock. Only then did they understand. Mulan was a woman. This is the great reveal of the story, and it carries a truth that still hits hard today. For years, what made her valuable was not a label, not an expectation, not a role society had already prepared for her. What made her valuable was her courage, her discipline, her loyalty, her endurance, her ability. And that is why the old line from the story still feels so powerful. When two rabbits run side by side, how can you tell which is male and which is female? In other words, when people are truly moving, truly working, truly fighting, truly proving themselves, shallow labels begin to lose their power. That is why Mulan still matters. She speaks to people who have been underestimated, to people who have been told, "This is not your place," to people who have carried heavy responsibilities in silence, to people who were afraid but moved anyway, to people who did not begin with power but built it through action. She tells us this: you do not need the world's permission to become strong. You do not need perfect conditions to do something meaningful. You do not need to be born extraordinary to live an extraordinary life. Mulan began as a daughter at home. She became unforgettable through choice, through sacrifice, through action, through endurance, through quiet discipline, through love that was stronger than fear. And maybe that is why her story has lasted for centuries, because this is not only a story about war, it is a story about becoming, about stepping forward when life becomes heavy, about doing the hard thing before you feel ready, about continuing after the excitement is gone, about staying loyal to what matters, about letting your actions define you. So what can we learn from Mulan today? We can learn courage. When life places a burden in front of us, we can step forward. We can learn action. A brave heart matters, but brave action changes lives. We can learn endurance. The long road is where real strength is built. We can learn discipline. Quiet consistency is more powerful than loud confidence. We can learn clarity. Not every reward is worth taking. Not every crown is worth wearing. Not every victory is about power. And perhaps most of all, we can learn this. Some of the most powerful people in history did not begin as the strongest person in the room. They began as the person who refused to step back. That was Mulan, not only a legend, not only a warrior, but a daughter who chose courage. And by choosing courage, she changed her family, her fate, and the way the world remembered her. Thank you for listening.